All right, we're recording now. For all you chooches that didn't show up, you missed the 10-minute intro of good stuff.
I like how
So
you turned on your podcaster voice there.
did I?
Yeah. You're like, okay, guys, now we're recording.
You're recording now.
Laptop Empire live.
So anyway, yeah, I didn't even realize I did that. So
that's good.
welcome to the show. And today we're just talking about, well, we're going to share some stories. We're going to talk about like how we got started. And if you saw the post when it came in, everybody views success as this line, and it's really like this crazy knot and, of ups and downs and losing your mind. So we're going to talk about that today, and you guys can chime in with your questions as we go. We've already had a couple. So yeah, where do you want to start, man? Are you drinking anything?
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
This is a special episode, so I got my favorite one.
Oh, nice. I saw one of the quotes, so guys, we're putting together this podcast and we're trying to find some like quotes from the trainings for the podcast intro. And one of them is Bobby. And it's like, man, I always forget what we're talking about. Probably the wine. Like it's just, okay. Yeah. So, yeah. So, well, do you want to start at the beginning of our stuff or beginning of your stuff or my stuff, or kick us off? Bring it home, Bobby.
Bring it. Well, okay. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk. I'll ask you first. So, okay. Everybody knows, like, we're the point of this whole thing. A lot of people are getting started. A lot of people are like not at the beginning of their journey now, but they're kind of in the, I don't know, kind of
the beginning, but like
zone between, like maybe you've gotten your first client, or maybe you're about to, or whatever. And
well, so, I think a lot of people are at that spot where you're still at the beginning, but you've been doing it long enough that you're going like, well, shit, like this might not be as easy as I was hoping it would be or thought it would be, or you're just in that like, man, I need a break. I've been hustling my face off because a lot of y'all have been hustling your faces off.
Yeah, we had a lot of people get clients this week. It was really cool.
Dude, I think we're at 6 people and some of them got multiple clients.
Yeah. But that just goes to show. And I think that the overall message of what we're going to talk about here is like, you just kind of have to keep grinding for a long time. and your successes, like they start to pile up, but they become harder to recognize, I feel like, because it's like, you have a success and then you're on to the next thing. And the same thing happened, for Mike and I.
Yep.
This business that we've started since late January has been really, really successful, but we're already freaking out about the next 10 things that we need to do. And so like, it's almost like your business successes as an entrepreneur are, they're very short-lived. If you're a very driven entrepreneur, like I feel like you could probably have like a success and like really dwell on it for a long time, but I don't think
that's not how we're wired.
Yeah, we're not wired. It's like, I think a lot of people, and what I would have done a long time ago when I was teaching or whatever, if I had like an accomplishment, I would have like basked in the glory of accomplishment, but I can't anymore because it's like nobody cares. It's not that nobody cares, but you have your success, you have your accomplishment, everybody's like, yay, and we celebrate it in the group, and then everybody moves on to the next thing and you got to keep going.
Well, this is why like we celebrate so much, like you and I, like in the group, the other day I'm going through doing my like reading through threads, trying to like people's comments and reply and all that. And I see that Zach Starnes is like, hey, I got a client. And it's like buried in the comments, there's like 15 gifts. And then there's like, I got a client, and nobody had noticed it yet. And I'm like, holy freaking shit, dude, like go post, like, let us gift bomb the hell out of you. And then I put like 10 gifts on his thing, but it was like, like we got to go, let's go celebrate, because I think I wouldn't have even thought to talk about this, but I'm glad you brought it up. It's so important because it's so easy to look at how much further you have to go. Right. Yeah. And it's hard to look at how far you've come. And I think there's a lot of that in this community too, where, man, some of y'all know your stuff. And I see a lot of our people in communities that I'm part of, and I see them answering questions and doing the things we tell them and giving really good answers and looking like total pros. And I'm just like a proud pop over here. I love it. Yeah. So So you guys have come a really freaking long way. So I think that's a great point. Like you
Yeah.
got to celebrate it.
Well, I think, yeah, absolutely. I think we should back up though. I think we should talk because I when we first came up with the idea for this one and we talked about it, it's like, we wanted to go through some of our struggles and some of our wins.
Yeah.
But I think that the overall theme is kind of mentorship, because you and because I want to go back and talk about our mentors because that was a big part. And it was interesting because when I have 2 going on 3 mentors right now. And when I teamed up with you, I didn't know a whole lot of people in my age that were my age and entrepreneurs that like really believed in that. And I'm a huge believer in that. So like, let's go back to your mentor. Who is it? And how have they helped you? Who's the first one? Who's like the main one you can think of? And then how have they kind of helped you in your journey?
You're putting me on the spot because that's a really hard one for me to answer. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that have been. Sorry. There's people that we've had as guests in this group that I've learned a lot from. Mike Heath that came on here. I've learned a lot from that guy. He's a good buddy of mine now. When I first made the transition from just me to becoming an agency and building a team, I actually hired Gary, right? And and so I would say he's been a big mentor of mine and has become a good friend of mine. And even, somebody like Tega, who technically works for me now, but has just always been a guy, like even to this day, like if I'm, need to talk to somebody about something, I will go talk to him. He's just very wise in the world of business and knows a lot of people and has been around a lot of things. And, but I think for me, I've always kind of had these, where for you, I think you've got a couple of people that are older and that have been there and they're passing on wisdom to you. And I've never really had that relationship. I think the closest thing to that is working with Gary. But I've had a lot of situations where maybe I was working with a client that was where I wanted to be. And I was able to glean a lot of things from seeing behind their business, behind the scenes, or I've built, we're very fortunate to bring in a lot of guests. Like I've been able to find some cool people that I know because I have a big network. I don't have a huge audience, but I've got a big network. And so I've just built a lot of relationships with people where, I'm able to, there's some crazy stuff going on here.
What?
Oh, I was just like looking on. Anyway, my screen was just acting crazy. So there's been a lot of people that I've just connected with, and I've shared things with them and taught them things, and they've taught me things. And so I've had a lot more of those kind of relationships, more than I've had true mentors. So that's a really hard question for me to ask. But I think, so I guess for me, it's been more about just building relationships with peers, helping people like when I can, and meeting new people that way. And I learn from them. And, but it's always a little piece here, a little piece there, a little piece here. More so than like just I wish I kind of had one person that I could just go to, but I've never really had that.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that's cool though, because I think, I have people ask me all the time because part of the mentor thing is a big part of my story. I talk about it a lot on Millennial Money Man in here. But I think the mentorship thing is a very dynamic, it's a dynamic aspect of entrepreneurism because, you have a lot of people that have been very influential to you.
Yep.
You do have a huge network. That was something I was surprised. Like when I first started working with you, I was like, God, this guy knows freaking everybody. Whereas I kind of went a different route and I had like a select group of people that I kind of got advice from that were business owners.
Yep.
So when people ask me all the time, like, how do you get mentors? I'm actually going to write a post about this because somebody asked me in one of the other groups and they were like, how do you get a mentor? And there's so many different ways, but I think that the thing is to just reach out and learn from other people. And I think it's
conversations.
Yeah.
It's just being real and having conversations with people, I think is the main thing.
Yeah, I agree. So when you started out, You see, and this is cool too, because you had a different path than I did. And I'll talk about mine later, but your path was like you started out and you were a lawyer.
Hey, now that your mic is
I'm sorry.
connected, you need to like
Sorry.
stay near it instead of moving in and out.
Sorry, man. I'm trying to get comfortable while I'm talking. So you started out as a lawyer.
Yep.
You felt trapped, I'm sure, at one point. Can you talk about the transition that you made from being a lawyer to becoming a business owner, and how did you do that? Like, did you have any guidance from anybody, or was it just like you just read books? Like, how did you do that?
No, I didn't. You know, I'm one of those people that I kind of tend to just do things on my own, figure things out on my own. I think that was one of the reasons that I did well in law school. It's because it's an independent thing. I mean, even the professors don't really teach you. They just ask you a bunch of dumb questions so you can teach yourself. It's kind of silly. But it works, but no, for me, I don't think I ever intended to be here. I just kind of arrived one day. When I started, I went through kind of a weight loss journey in law school because I was like, man, I just need to get in shape, and did very quickly. And I started having people asking me for help and that kind of stuff. And it was something I kind of became passionate about. And I saw an opportunity. There was a website at the time called Photocracy. It's still there, but it's dead. But it was called Photocracy, and it's like fitness Facebook. And they were starting to roll out these programs, and you could like hire a coach. And I had never hired anybody. And I was like, okay, it's really affordable. I'm going to hire one. And I did, and I saw it. And then I realized they were going to start bringing people on. And I was like, I can do this. I'm going to make some money. And I was in law school. And so I'm like, I'm going to make some money doing this. And then my client, Jason, who's the guy I went to Vegas with, I was like, he was doing his own thing. And I said, hey man, I want to do this, but I don't have any experience. I want you to come over here and run a program, and I'm going to show you how to market it, how to arrange it, how to do everything. And this was based on just my experience as a student in 2 of these little courses. I was like, I saw enough of what they did, what worked, what didn't, that I've got it figured out. You come here, I'll help you get sales and get it figured out. You're going to show me what you do behind the scenes. Then I'm going to go do it. And that's what we did. And then the 2 of us for a long time were the most successful people on that platform. And then I saw it starting to die, and I bailed before he did and started running it through Facebook, doing Facebook ads. Right. That was how that started for me. And then, we went different paths and reconnected, him hiring me down the road. But so I just kind of started this thing. I saw an opportunity to make some money and went, I have a lot of student loans. Like, I'm just going to and it was kind of silly because it was like pocket change that I was making, but it led to, I got in a situation. I had this business. I was like, I'm going to do it. And I didn't have time to blog. I didn't have time to do all of the social media and the things that everyone else was doing to build up their business. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to run Facebook ads, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to pay to get clients. And I just went into it with the mentality that I'm going to put money into this thing, and I'm going to make money back out of it. And I just ran a really stupid, simple ad, and I would get on the phone, and I was just doing phone call. And because that was more time efficient for me being in law school with everything I had going on. And I built that up. And then, I just suddenly here I am, I'm a no name in this business, and I'm doing better than most of the people that are my peers. And they start asking me why. And so I start teaching them. And this is how everything kind of always happens for me is I do figure something out, and then I start helping people, and then I see an opportunity, and I kind of pounce on it. And so I've pivoted a lot. So I just kind of, next thing you know, I've passed the bar. I've got a fitness business. I've got the beginnings of my agency, which was me doing marketing, consulting, running ads, and those sorts of things. I'm working for an oil company as an attorney, and my son's born, and I was working from home in that attorney job. So I'm doing all of these things at once at one point. And, and then eventually I started cutting things one at a time. But yeah, so even then, there was a point where I was getting ready to stop the Facebook business stuff. I was getting ready to stop the fitness stuff, and I was going to get a job at a bigger firm, and I was gearing up to do all of that. And then Cooper, my oldest son, ended up in the hospital, and he was maybe 6-7 weeks old, something like that. Really, it was like Katie went back to work, and it was like my first day home with him. And then like the next day he got sick and was in the hospital for a week. And we never talked about it. We never had a discussion about me not going and taking the big corporate lawyer job, and we didn't talk about me continuing my businesses. We just did it. It was just one of those things we both knew because of what happened. We couldn't really put him in daycare because he was susceptible to being more sick and getting ill. And so it was like, I have a job where I can work from home. I've got this side income. We're going to do this thing. And then it got to a point where I actually left the law stuff before I quit the fitness business. And then I shut down the fitness business and went on this full time, and then started hiring people, and then we connected, and here we are. So no, I didn't, nobody told me what to do. Nobody guided me through it. I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of studying. I did a lot of observing other people. You talk about mentors. I think one of the things that I did was when I go into groups and things, when I follow people online, instead of consuming their content, I pay attention to what they're doing, right? I look at where they're spending their time, the types of content they're doing, the types of communities they have, how their system works. And that was the kind of, because I was never looking for like the guru to give me the answer to make money. I was looking at, this person's doing what I want to do. Let me reverse engineer it. And that's really kind of been my mentorship, has been watching other people and seeing how they did things. A lot, I've mentioned Dan Meredith before, like a lot of the stuff that we've kind of implemented were things like me watching his community. And there's a lot of other people too. I could name 5 or 6 other people, but so yeah, man, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you jumped like right in, I think, like, so did you, well, yeah, I know we've talked about that, but, but did you like have somebody to guide you, or did you just kind of jump into it and then go, oh shit, like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah, I had a couple people that were, it's funny because like they don't know anything about online businesses or blogs. So they couldn't help me. I've got my friend Jim, who goes by Mike on the blog because for some reason he wants to be anonymous, but nobody's gonna, I just outed him, but nobody's ever going to know who he is. But Jim was a good friend of Coral's father. And they just one random day, he just asked me and Coral during the summer, it was right after I graduated college. He was like, hey, do you want to go water skiing? And I'd never gone before. So I was like, yeah. And so pretty much we went out, he talked about student loans and because he'd owned a swimming pool company for the last 30 years. And he was kind of winding down, but he was just like, he asked me about student loans and he talked to me about that. And then basically he convinced me to pay off the student loans. I was still in a place in my life where I was like, that was before I was all like I am now. I'm a lot more stubborn than I used to be. I used to be like very moldable and like, people could like tell me stuff and I would listen, and I'm less like that now. But he presented that idea of paying off student loans. So I did that, whatever. A lot of people know that story already. I paid off the student loans, and then I saved up a lot of money with Coral, and we kind of saved up a year's worth of my salary. And man, I wanted to quit my job. I actually went, I've referenced this a couple times. I haven't really talked about it a whole lot. I was so desperate to start something of my own that I was going to start a swimming pool company. And it wasn't like I was just going to go and just start the company. I actually went with him and I worked for him full time during a summer in between, I think it was my second and third year teaching. And, I went, I'd get there at like 8 at his shop. He still had enough customers to where it would make it kind of worth it for me to learn stuff. And I'd go, man, and I'd go into these people's backyards and he would force me to talk to the customers, which I'd never done anything like that before, as a teacher. And he was like, no, you're going to talk to the customers. You're going to, basically run the business and I'm just going to make sure you don't screw it up. And so I was cutting pipe. I was helping him install pool heaters. I was cleaning out filters. Like I was doing the scrubbing pools. I was doing all of it. And I did that for weeks and weeks and weeks that one summer. And I realized pretty quickly, like, I don't want to do this kind of work. This kind of work sucks. Because it's hot. One of the big things, and this might be kind of vain, but if you meet Jim, you see his arms and they're all scarred up. Like they have scars all over. And that's just a reality of working in the swimming pool company. And, I was like, man, I don't want to do that. And then the next level of why I didn't do the swimming pool company was like, it's a very hard business to scale because the people that you're hiring this is going to sound really bad. They're typically like the bottom of the barrel people, because like people that are good enough to do that kind of work typically go into like HVAC work where there's more of like a ladder to success, or they become plumbers or whatever. They usually don't become swimming pool guys. So I looked at that business for a long time and I was like, yeah, I can make a lot of money quickly. But I'll never be able to scale it to what I want to do. And so anyways, through that process, I learned a ton about business, just like old school, real business, not like the fluffy online stuff that we do. And, and, I loved it, but I was just like, his business is not the right business for me. And so go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned a couple of times, like it wasn't scalable and that sort of thing. So did you go into this, like you said you knew you wanted to do something for yourself, but did you like, no, I want something that I can scale? Like, did you know you wanted to do that? Like, did you know I want to have this certain kind of lifestyle, so I need to have this scalable business? Or, because that's what it sounds like, but I don't.
Yeah. It was one of those things where, yeah, I have a certain lifestyle I want to have. I want to be very wealthy. But the thing that Jim in his biggest years, he was probably making about $400,000 a year, which is incredible money,
which is awesome.
But I looked at it and I was like, I don't ever want to be limited. And I looked at his business and I looked at a lot of other pool companies and a lot of variations on different pool companies, like swimming pool builders versus just general contractors, all that kind of stuff. And none of them could get to the point where they were doing multi-million-dollar businesses per year. And it's not that I felt like I needed that much money, but I never wanted to feel like I was limited by the business model. And so I looked at it from the standpoint of like, an online business, there's so many people and it's so scalable. And that was before I knew like the real power of online businesses. I just knew I was just doing math, like rough math of like, oh wow, there's this many people in America. And I can reach this amount of people, even a fraction of that, it's going to be a business that's unfathomable. So that was a big part of it. But I do, one of the reasons that I started paying off my student loans and I started this whole journey, we were skiing and we were on this lake that has all these really cool mansions. And I looked at Jim as like, dude, I want to be in one of those one day. And he was like, you're a teacher. Like, it's not going to happen, dude. And I was like, wow. But it was so true. And it's that brutal honesty. And that's one of the things about mentors that's good is like sometimes.
And ever since then, he was like ticking time bomb on the teacher thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And but I'm like you, I'm sure. Like I always was an entrepreneur. I just didn't know it.
Oh yeah. Well, I think one of the things, if you go back to like most of my life, everybody's like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And everybody has like different things. I think the thing I talked about most through my life was like owning a restaurant. Now I don't want to do that now, but yeah, but I mean, it just goes to show you like, I've always kind of wanted a thing, but I'll be real, man. Like a lot of this stemmed from just like not knowing what I wanted to do. Even when I went to law school, I don't know that I went to law school like right away where I was like, that's a good fit, right? Not necessarily like, oh, I want to be a lawyer. It was like, that's a good fit, So, and I was talking to my dad when I was down in Clear Lake, a couple weeks ago, and I was like, man, this is kind of crazy because I went to school. I went to college with the intent of commissioning in the military and getting an engineering degree. That was my first, thing I was in. And then I started studying Russian, and then I studied something else, and then I ended up in political science. Then I went to law school, and like now I'm not even practicing law. So it's like, it's just crazy windy journey of just like not having a damn clue what I'm doing with my life. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a lot of it for me was just like trying to figure out like, okay, what am I going to do? And I think, even we've talked about like with businesses and stuff, like we're doing this right now. This is awesome, but I don't know what I want to do in 5 years.
Yeah. I don't know what we're going to be doing in 5 years. And that's what's going to be happening for everybody in this group. I mean, people will build out these killer agencies, and then something will change and they'll have to pivot. But that's entrepreneurship. I mean, nothing ever stays the same.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, like, once you learn the skills of how to make money without a paycheck, then it's like, it's game over. Like I could go and sell, I don't know, furniture or whatever. Like I could, it's just different now because you pick up a skill set to do that.
Well, we talked about,
hi, Cam.
We talked about recently, I don't remember who, you and I were talking about this, and I don't remember who asked me this question, but was like, well, what are you going to do if this ever goes away? And I was just like, I've just kind of reached a point where I've figured it out enough that if I had no money tomorrow and I had bills to pay with the skills that I've learned doing all of this, like I could go find money online.
Dude,
like it's in my blood now. And and a lot of y'all are going to get to that. I think there's going to be a lot of people, not a lot. I think there's already a lot of you that are doing well and have clients and stuff, but I think there's going to be people that are going to come into this course, and it's going to be that first entrepreneurial bug that leads to the next thing, right? Like you're going to discover, I really like copywriting, or I really like phone sales, and you're going to get really good at maybe something else that you learned in here, but wasn't necessarily like what you thought you were going to do. Because that's kind of what happens. Like most people, their big business, their real successful business tends to be their second business, because they learn some skills in the first one and they pivot. Now, obviously, Bobby, you've had a very successful first business. I had a successful first business, but my second business was more successful, so I killed off the first one.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So just something to think about. Like you're learning a lot. Like in order to do this, you're learning this platform, but this course isn't really about Facebook ads. It's about copywriting. It's about advertising. It's about lead generation. It's about sales. It's about systems. There are so many things that you learn in order to do this. And those skills are going to transfer into your career one day if you decide to go with a career, or they're going to transfer into this or your next thing, whatever you decide to do. Anything sales and marketing can be applied to anything in life.
Yeah, that's totally true. So for you've told me this before. I've never actually asked you about it, I don't think. You told me very early on that you struggled with shiny object syndrome.
Oh, big time.
But like had a real struggle with it. Like it was
really big time. Not like we were joking about it before the recordings, because that was mainly joking. No, I really struggled with that. And I think if we go back to, kind of like me starting out in my journey, one of the things that's held me back the most has been shiny objects, like getting interested in things. I get really interested in things. I'm always tell people like I'm a compulsive researcher. Like that's my personality. If I get interested in something, I study it. Like that's just kind of how I function. And so for me in business, it was very easy for me early on to go and be like, okay, I have to figure out Twitter, and I have to figure out Facebook, and I have to figure out this, and I have to figure out that. And that's why, I feel like it's helping me now, because I can answer questions on email marketing, phone sales, Facebook, any really social media platform you can think of. all these systems, automations, team building, like all these aspects of business, because at one time or another, I was kind of obsessed with one of those things or another and got off track. Right. But it's also the same reason now. You've joked before about how today, when we're doing something, if I don't view it as something that I should be doing or that's in my lane, I'm like, don't even talk to me. I don't care. Go do it. Like somebody else go do it. Like, don't tell me how it works, like unless and a good example is SEO. I don't know much about SEO, and we were talking about all this stuff, and it was like, tell me enough that I understand what's going on, but no more. Right. And it's just because for me to be successful as an entrepreneur, I had to overcome certain personality quirks and harness them. And for me, I'm just a very curious person, and I'm also very competitive. I want to be better than everyone at everything, except for basketball, because I'm a short white guy. Right. So, so for me, I get, I always want to be the next person or whatever. So I can dive off into things that I shouldn't be doing. And I had to overcome that in order to be successful, so that now it's become, I've just adopted this person, like I really believe like people limit themselves by what they think about themselves. So I stopped thinking of myself as a procrastinator. And I just decided one day that I was just going to do things. And I stopped thinking of myself as a person that was a jack of all trades, and decided that I was going to be really good at certain things, it's a decision you have to make. And I still let you lapse, like you fall into your natural habits. But if you can recognize that, and you can focus that, then that's powerful. And it's like the perfectionism thing. We talked, I think it was before we started recording, like being a perfectionist as a business owner is incredibly beneficial, but it sucks really bad when you're trying to get started with something, and even like us, we're trying to launch this website, we're trying to launch the podcast. And like, that's something I'm struggling with right now, because I don't want to launch something that's not perfect.
Yeah.
So, and you'll notice the difference. Maybe I don't know if you've noticed this, but you've probably had a lot more resistance from me when it comes to the website than we did with the course, because what we're talking about in the course and launching the course and building a community and doing all of this, it's like breathing to me. I've done it 1,000 times. I've helped 1,000 people do it. Launching a blog is not something that I'm used to doing. And so I'm like, it's taking a lot of effort to just sit down and do the thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've totally noticed that. But I think it's a good thing though. Switching gears a little bit, because I'm curious about this. What makes you tick? What drives you? Because everybody has something that drives them. Like really, and we ask in the group sometimes. We say like, "What's your why?" or whatever. But that's not like the why is one part of it.
Yeah.
I'm interviewing you.
I know.
The why is one thing, but I think the actual, like, what really at the fundamental core, what drives you to be successful?
Yeah, man, I'm going to be like super brutally honest here. The easy answer, and I think 9 times out of 10, if you interview people, they're going to be like, my family, my kids, like all these really noble things. And that's definitely true. Like, man, I love being home with my family, and I'm doing this like to build a life for my family. But man, I just
sound good.
Those are the things that sound good. But the stuff that drives me on the day to day is just beating people, like taking people down. It's like totally a game for me.
He's not making this.
I'm not kidding. I told, we talked about mentors. I have a bad habit of, I have people that I like what they're doing and I want to get to where they are. And I like really want to learn from them and all of this. And then I get to a point where they say something or do something and I go, oh, you don't know any more than I do. And then it's a flip of a switch. I all of a sudden am like, I want to take that person down. I want to pass them. And this has happened once already since Bobby and I started working together. There's somebody that I was like, hey, I really like how they do this stuff. And then I had a conversation with this person and I came back from the conversation was like, we're going to take them down in the next 6 months. Like, because that's my personality. That's to me. And I'm doing that. I do that with people in your world that I don't know. Like, and I mean, you've seen this. There's like people in the personal finance world that for whatever reason, like something happened, they said something, they wrote something, and I just set my sights on them. And I was like, we have to crush that person. Like, not in like a mean way. Like, I don't have any ill will to them, but I just am like, we can do it better. And that's what drives me.
And I think the difference is when you say I want to crush them, I don't want people to think that we are talking about like Mike wants to put people literally out of business. Like that's not what it is, because we're not talking about, because it's, I mean, you can't put somebody out of business in blogging really.
Oh no, not at all.
People. But it's just passing.
I just want to be bigger than them.
Yeah.
It's all about the big numbers, baby. That's all it is. Like for me.
That. And so I think just in case anybody was like, man, this guy's cutthroat. Like, yes, but there's levels of business cutthroat. There's, I literally want to put you out of business and take food off of your table.
And that's not me.
I think that's shitty, but that's not Mike. Mike wants to take people out. Like he wants to pass them. And I do too. And that's the interesting thing about us.
I want to put food on everybody's table.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for real. Like I want everybody to make money. Like that's
hence all the
straight up. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's important to recognize that that you have that kind of drive, because when we first started working together, there was a little bit, Mike and I working together, and the fact that we brought this together so quickly and that we actually coexist so well
is a miracle.
Yeah. Because both of us we are both very competitive, and we both really want to do really well. And so we've had a shocking lack of competitiveness with each other, which I think, I don't know how that happened.
Well, I don't feel competition with people that are on my team.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's what it is. It's like sports.
It's like when you're an entrepreneur, you don't like being told what to do. You're working for yourself for a reason. And I think we've been able to kind of like
figure that out somehow. We just got really freaking lucky. That's all it is.
We did, because a lot of people, and we were hesitant to do a business partnership together. Mike a little bit more than, because I was like, this guy's legit. I want to partner with him. But I think business partnerships are hard though. And he knows that from the legal side of things. Like it's a marriage.
I think I told you like early on, I was like, man, I really don't want to do like a partnership. Like,
yeah, but
I was like trying to be wordy around it. I was like, maybe like a JV,
Yeah, but I hit you with I hit you with an offer.
Yeah.
To not partner, and then you didn't like it.
Yeah, because it was a shittier offer.
Yeah, I hit him with something. I can't even remember what I did.
I remember what you did.
It was good though. Well, you didn't want to partner, so I was like, okay, I'll go talk to my lawyer. And it was good though. So here we are. We're partnered.
Yeah. No, and I think it's important, like, never forget. It was a dick move.
It wasn't a dick move. It was a strategic move.
Okay. Well, anyway, it all worked out. No, it was. I'm just giving you a hard time. I think it's important to know, and let's hash this out. No, there's nothing to hash out. I mean, it just, it was a nudge. It was a nudge. I'm just giving him a hard time. I think it's important to know like what your personality is though. Like I didn't, for a long time, like I didn't know that, but when you're able to be more successful. And so, I've really kind of embraced that kind of competitive edge really a lot more in the last year or so than I did beforehand, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into it too. Like, things like a lot of people, you go into business and you have this idea that like money is bad, right? Like that, a lot of people deal with that. Like if you make money, you're a bad person. And so I had that in my mind. And so I was constantly fighting this thing of like feeling like a greedy douchebag for wanting to do more and wanting to build it bigger. And for me, and it wasn't even about the money was just the point system, right? Like it wasn't about that. It was about like doing something really cool. I think I just have always had this thing where I was like, I just wanted to do something that no one else did. And I think, and that was a big part of it for me when I made that decision of like, when I truly made the decision of like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be a business person instead of a lawyer, is because I was able to see, I have all these people I graduated with in law school, and I can fight them at their own game and fall where I am and be a certain age and maybe get to the top, or I can just change the game and pass all of them up in a few years, which is what I've done. And so like, you know, that to me, like that's a big driver for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and for, I don't know. I mean, what's yours then? Like, just kind of I'm not going to throw an original question at you. Just going to tell me what's your driving force.
What drive?
The house on the lake.
No. Oh man, we're gonna get deep. I hope you guys
Are you going to come with it? Are you going to come with a cheesy one at me now after I'm like,
no, man, no, I'm going to hit you with something real.
Okay.
So back when I was getting ready to leave my job, and I knew, I was like, I know I want to leave and do something else, but I'm not sure what. Did the pool business thing. That sucks. So I didn't do it. And then, through that whole time, and I've actually never told anybody this, so this is interesting stuff. Through that whole time, like I didn't really like my job a whole lot. I've taught, if people have followed Millennial Money Man, they know about probably my wife's dad, I would imagine, but he was sick. He had a disease called inclusion body myositis, and he was very slowly in the process of kind of like losing his, bodily functions, I guess. And that was happening. We lived with them. And so, Coral and I lived there, and we were kind of helping take care of him because that's just, it was what it was, and we needed to. At the same time, my mother was going through I guess to put it like lightly, there's no light way to say it. She's going through a mental breakdown. And so it was like, basically what happened was she very slowly kind of lost her ability to control her anxiety. And so it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then it turned into a psychosis. And then it got really, really bad. And so she was in and out of like mental hospitals. We were going to psychiatrists, like I was going and talking to psychiatrists, psychologists. And I was basically, I thought I had lost my mom. And this was all happening at the exact same time that Bill was getting sick. And so, I'd go to work. I didn't like my job. And then I'd get home and Bill was sick. And that was heartbreaking. And then, my mom had this whole thing, we're taking her to a mental hospital. And I just got to the point where I was like, I'm not going to be unhappy anymore. Like, there's not going to be a single day that I'm going to be not working towards what I want anymore. And so at that point, I was like, I was already kind of doing Millennial Money Man. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to make the jump. And I was going to wait another year to do it. And my mentor was like, no, dude, you need to do it now. And so that was that was the driving factor for like, I've got to do something else, because I was surrounded by all the shittiness, The good thing is though, my mom is totally okay now. They finally got her stabilized and all that stuff. And like, you would never know now. But for about a year of my life, it was horrible. And I was like, I just can't, like, I'm not going to be trapped in this job, because life is so fleeting. It's like that was the biggest thing to me. I saw that, I'm healthy now. We're all healthy now, unfortunately, but it can be taken from you like that. And it can be your mind, it can be your body. And I saw both of those things in real time. And I was like, you can't, if I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I wanted to own my own business. The path I was on wasn't there. And I felt like I didn't have time to stay on that path. And so I had to make the jump. So that's why, like, yeah, I'd only made $3, but like I was going to make the jump to blogging, and I wasn't going to fail because I couldn't, And so that's something that drives me still. It's not the house and it's not stuff. I don't really care about stuff that much. I showed you my flip-flops earlier, falling apart. It's, I truly do it sounds corny sometimes, but it's like I truly wake up every day and I'm like, glad I woke up, you know,
Yeah.
and I try to approach every day like that. And now, you know, there was a lot of years of hard work, but it's like now I have the life I want. So if something did happen, I know that I at least pursued the life I wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's what drives me.
Yeah, man. Man.
Sorry, I know I got deep, but
No, you did. You did get deep. I'm all
but it's
like,
real, man. It's real life
I'm all
stuff,
like,
and I think a lot of people though. But you know, one of the things and I've never talked about my mom in my writing because that's a hard subject to tackle. But I have talked about Bill, and I think you know one of the things as entrepreneurs, and we talk about like I see all these gurus, and they're talking about like you got to hustle your face off, and you got to do this, you got to do that. I think that's all well and good, but I think that everybody has like an even deeper level of something that drives them. And I think like for you, I think it's probably seeing your son when he was sick in the hospital. I think there's probably a lot of that drives you to really,
oh, hell
I
yeah.
mean, you know what I mean? And I think everybody takes this course, everybody that reads Millennial Money Man, I think everybody has one of those things that's like really deep, really dark. And it drives you. But then when we talk about it, we talk about like the nice, pretty things like the house or I want to beat people or whatever. And so I think, you know, I don't know. Those are things I think about a lot
Well,
though.
I think, I think, my answer to the question was more of like the day-to-day thing.
One was a good answer to it, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm not,
yeah. But
I
I
wasn't
mean, but it's
adding it.
for me, that's the day-to-day drive is, like for me, I just kind of like cruise through life imagining a new chip to put on my shoulder. Like
Yeah.
that's just how I function. Um, but no, I mean, but there's some real stuff. And I think the biggest thing that I was thinking about at the end of you talking about all of that you said that I think we need to talk about is it's all about a decision,
Mm.
right? At the end of the day, like what happens comes down to you deciding to make something happen. And that might sound woo woo, but if you call me a guru, I'll fight you. But you have, Bobby talked about like he just woke up one day and was like, I'm not going to have another day where I'm not happy in life. Like I'm going to make it so that
Yeah.
I'm this way. And, you know, I don't know that I have like this specific moment or anything where I've decided that, but that happened, like that's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at. And I can tell you, I can tell you all that, I know for Bobby and I, when we first started all of this, we were both kind of in a place in our businesses where it was like, we're very successful and doing very well, but felt like we were missing something.
Mm-hmm.
And this has kind of filled the gap, like we've talked about a lot. I don't know if with y'all, but like with each other about like having a business partner and having a team and all of this stuff has helped us deal with like kind of the isolation of working from home. Right.
Yeah.
Because it can get super freaking lonely. And so, and with that, when we talked about what do we want this business to be, it started with an idea, but then we had to decide what do we want this to be. And we've always said, we want to make money. We want to help other people make money. And we want to have a damn good time.
Yeah.
And like, that's, if you were to like do our mission statement, that's it. Right. Like, and it's not because, and when we talk about money, we talk about making money, what we're talking about is like, we want to be able to do what we want in life and with our family or whatever. We want to, if we want to go buy the really nice bottle of wine, we want to do that and not have to worry about it,
Yeah.
And we want to help other people do that. We want to have fun. And that's, that's been a big shift because, that's even, y'all were asking before we started recording, when are y'all launching the Laptop Empires website and podcast? Well, we don't know yet because we were planning to launch it here we're going to do it next month, but we're planning to do it like on the 1st. And we just said, hey, right now we're super stressed out about this and we're going to have to hustle our faces off and pull some late nights to like make this happen. And it's going to be tense. And we created this so that way we didn't have to be that way. So
Yeah.
how about, like, why are we doing that? And so we're like, let's still work hard and let's get things done, but like, let's not pull all-nighters. Like, let's get some sleep. Let's go spend some time with the girls, like, let's chill. And it was like, we had that. Bobby sent me a voice message and was like, so do you want to postpone it? He's like, cause he said something like, cause that would be a huge fucking relief. And
Yeah.
when he said that, I started laughing, but I like immediately felt better because I was getting that way. And that's, and that's something too for y'all when you're going through this. Like, you need to recognize when that stress level hits a certain point, you've got to back up. You've got to take a step back. And that's why I was actually really proud this week that when we did this accountability challenge, that we had multiple people that were like, guys, I love it. I've been working hard, but I can't do it this week. I need to take a break.
That's
And
great.
and I had to do that last week. Like Thursday, I checked out. I was talking to Bobby and I'm like, dude, I'm done. Like, I'm just done for the week. I was having a hard time and I took the week off and I came back and I was like, let's do all the things, and like made this challenge out of nothing. So, you've got to recognize that, and you can try and force yourself to go hard and just do mediocre, or you can take that break and then come back and crush it,
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to notice that. And I went really far afield there, but
I think it's relevant.
just like, what Bobby was saying, waking up and being like, it's not going to be this way anymore. It's just like fitness. When you talk to somebody about that has a big fitness transformation, and they'll always say, I just woke up one day and I couldn't take it anymore. And then they had no problem and they just crushed. Now they had ups and downs, but they did it. Right. But if you ask them what it was like the 6 months prior to that decision, it was ups and downs. It was struggles. It was attempts. It was guilt over not doing it. There was a lot of struggle. And then one day they said enough. And that you're going to have that in your entrepreneurial life many, many times, where you're going to have really high points and really low points. And eventually you just have enough. But then you're going to reach another point. You're going to have high points. You're going to have low points. And it's going to happen many times, but it's a decision. It's a mental state and it's a choice. And you can't really manufacture it, but I firmly believe that a lot of those kind of things, it's a choice to say, it sucks ass right now, but because it's so bad, like, I'm not going to let myself stay in the spot and I'm going to do everything possible. And you dig yourself out of that hole.
I think that's the jumping point for a lot of entrepreneurs. Like, I would imagine that a lot of successful entrepreneurs, like, their thing when they finally decided, like, I'm going to freaking crush this and I'm going to do it. I think they hit either rock bottom. Like, I was talking to that Steve guy and I did an interview, like, he hit rock bottom at one point and then he just, I think everybody in their own way kind of hits that at some point. And then because and actually he said something that really was cool. He was like, no smart person ever does entrepreneurism or whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
Because this is hard, man. Like, it looks cool. And one of the things I hate about my industry is, like, we do the Instagram bullshit with, like, my life is awesome and I'm like laptop on the beach and
Oh, I hate that shit.
I live on in a van that floats on water, and, like, I don't. It's just like all this stuff that's so fake, and they're like, oh, I work a couple hours a week when they're really working like 80 hours a week. They don't feel like they've taken a vacation in years because their life
Van life
sucks. Well, it's true, man. In my I could go on a whole thing about my industry and, like, what
we're talking about. So I've, like, learned so much. I think Bobby's learned so much about my world and I've learned so much about his, and this fire stuff always cracks me up. And, one of the things that I was talking about with Bobby the other day is somebody was writing this fire post and it was about, like, you get to $1 million and then you live off 4%, which is $40,000 a year. And, like, they're living in their van traveling around the country on $40,000 a year. And I just said to Bobby, and I was like, man, nothing wrong with making $40,000 a year. But if I'm going to do this and I have the ability to get to $1 million, I'm not going to then settle to live off 4%. Like, I'm going to keep doing it nonstop, and I'm going to buy a baller ass house and love my life. And, you know, like, and there's nothing, if that's what the choice they want to make, if that's the lifestyle they want to make, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like, I was just like, man, that's not, to me, that's not living the life.
You
Like,
made a point to me, and I wish I might do a post on this someday with your permission, but it was an incredible quote, because I never, I'm immersed in the fire world. I'm not a fire blogger. Everybody thinks I
I
am.
know what it is now, and it was what I was trying to say, but I couldn't remember the quote. And go for
Well,
it.
you basically said it feels like fire to me, because I'm an entrepreneur and I want to grow and I want to do so much. It looks like another form of like imprisonment to me. It was basically that. And I had never looked at it that way. And I was like, wow, like I've never heard that before.
Working hard to then have to like live, like to make the choice to live off that when you've earned so much more, to me seems like being trapped.
If the fire people heard us saying this right now, their heads would be exploding. They're very protective of their stuff,
Dude.
And for good reason.
Let's blow some shit up.
No, I don't want to, because I'm still
take me to FinCon and let me rock their worlds.
I am going to take the Mike to FinCon, but crush them. Yeah, but
hey, no, but well, Scott says like the 2-hour work week isn't real. It is, but it isn't, right? Like,
it could be, I guess. Like
it can't, like there are days where I only work a couple hours, like it happens. Yeah. I mean, and I've got the team that I can do that. And I've had times where like now it's nice, and I have the team where I'm like, I'm going out of town for a week and they take care of everything while I'm gone. So I could do that, but I'm not happy doing that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and that's actually like, that's a hard thing for me right now. Like, I love working. Like it's
yeah. So now, I know that there are people, I'm going to hedge here. I know that there are people that have taken this course that their goal is eventually fire, and that's awesome. But
yeah, no,
we're talking in this podcast, though, or not podcast, in this episode, which could be a podcast, we're talking about what drives us, and the way that Mike and I are wired, like neither of us have any, like fire isn't something I care about at all. Mm-hmm. And it seems like something that is nothing I would ever want to do. But to change gears a little bit, I do want to talk about some of the things that you
that's a great, really quickly. Lacey said, actually, the most common phrase I hear in personal finance world is that it's personal. It's true.
Yeah. And that's exactly
and that's why I said, like, there's no, like, I actually said this a few minutes ago, no judgment on that. Like, if that's what somebody wants, good for them. But that doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah. Mike is just, he's not in the personal finance world at all. And so he sees it's, and if you're into the personal finance world, one thing that you'll know, it's a weird group of people. And it's so what has happened, because I'm going to get on to something else here in a little bit, but what's happened in the personal finance group or space is that
Scott's getting such a kick out of this.
Scott is. Yeah. What's happened is that when I first started blogging, it was totally different than it is now. It was all about student loans. It was about paying off debt. And those were things that I think like a lot of people could relate to. Like my CNBC feature that kind of blew the site up was about student loans. Very quickly after that, all of the like CNBC and Yahoo Finance, they realized that, retired by 32 is way clickbaitier and a way better headline and way better stories for money. And so all of the fire people, that is a very, very small percentage of the population of Earth, they all started getting featured on these mainstream outlets a lot, and they became writers for the outlets. So then you had this non-mainstream idea that was being pushed into the mainstream. And the reality is most people won't ever be able to get to fire. Like that is the reality of our country. But then you have people that are like, everybody can do it. It's so easy. Everybody can get $1 million, which is not true. It's not true. So, but that's just one of those things that has bothered me about, and it's nobody's fault. It's just the media has
and we're not there. So we're not saying like, it's not easy. We know like we're not there either.
It's hard.
It's not,
no,
it's
hard,
not easy.
But it's just not realistic for a lot of people. But
yeah, it's not.
I don't know how we got off into a personal finance thing, but that's something that has bothered me.
You had something you were going to transition to, but I think Javi has a great question here. Just talking about like outlasting people in business. I mean, I can go on this, but if I want to give you an
Well,
opportunity
it depends on
first.
who we're talking about. I think. Okay.
I'm reading this
How are
as
you reading it? Yeah.
I'm reading this as, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting. Sorry, his next quote. People, or I'm reading this as many people start a business, but not many people actually build a business that continues long term. And so to me, like I'm reading it as like, how do you become a lasting business? How do you outlast other people in business? How do you continue to do this and be successful when so many other people have a flash in the pan business? And that's how I read it.
Yeah.
And so to me, I think a lot of that just has to do with, you have to go into it. You have to actually give a shit about the people you're working with and the service you're providing more than just making money and more than just living a lifestyle. And I, there's some people that I worked with that were funnel builders, right? They were building these lead gen funnels, and it was something that I did for free, right? It was something I just did as part of my job, as part of my $1,000 fee or $2,000 fee. And they were charging people like $5,000 for this, and living, wherever, some freaking
Yeah.
beach, and the product didn't work. Right. And it was just infuriating to me, because it was like, I would have these people come to me and they're like, I bought this thing. Can you run traffic to it? And I'm like, this thing is a carbon copy. It's a cookie cutter of the one that somebody came to me from last week, and we need to rebuild it, And so I think you outlast by getting people results, by caring about people, like, and their results more than your paycheck, and then by building relationships. Like, I don't know how many, we'll say this over and over and over. You have to talk to people. You have to build relationships. Like, it's conversations, it's real things. Like, most of my clients call me bro, like, because that's the relationship we have, is that they are friends of mine that just happen to pay me so that I can help them earn money, Yeah. And I think that's very important to build. And that's how you stick, is that they feel, and that's not only like how you last as a business, but that's how you retain clients and actually build, is by focusing on the relationship.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it. But I think that there's also, well, actually, let me ask you this real quick. Do you think that some people are made for business and some people aren't?
Yes.
Yeah. And I do too. And it's one of those things where I almost look at it. So when I was a teacher, and I was one of my bosses told me this, and he kind of like opened my eyes to it. It's like, in high school, in junior high, kids go through, they all want to be football players. Everybody wants to be a football player, at least in Texas. And they go through this process of, they go through junior high, then maybe they get put on like the B team, and then eventually they just get cut. In life, you don't get cut as quickly. Like, you get more chances to suck at something for a really long time. But what happens in entrepreneurship, a lot of people jump into it and then very quickly get cut because, there's no salary, there's no, contract. Usually it's like, you can either do it, and you can either hang or you can't. It's very much like sports. And so,
And hanging in entrepreneurship is mental.
yes.
So I think my answer, I immediately said yes, but it's a contradiction, because only certain people can do it. But those certain people are the people that start. So a lot of times, if the people that are willing to start, almost any of them can make it if they don't quit.
Yeah.
And that's such a big, big thing, because so many people quit when it gets hard, right? And the way you outlast other people is you stubbornly refuse to quit.
Yeah.
You just have to be like, I'm a damn cockroach and I'm not going anywhere. And if you can
Yeah.
do that, you're going to do well. And I think, when we were starting this course, one of the things we talked about was, is it okay to launch this course and like earn money teaching people how to do this when some people will buy the course and not get results? Right. And we talked about that. And one of the things that we kind of came to was, there's always going to be some of that, because some people aren't going to put in the effort, and they're not going to be cut out for it. And we can't do anything about that. But we just knew we were going to do everything we could from creating this group and everything to make sure people were successful. And then we just kind of trusted that the only people that were going to spend money on this were the people that were intrigued by this and were interested in it and just kind of felt inside like, I'm going to do this, and it's a small percentage. Like the people that look at the sales page and then the people that look at the order form, like it's like 1 to 2% of people that look at the order form that buy. And it's like 1 or 2% of people that look at the sales page that go to the order form. So it was weeded out. So we felt okay, because every single one of you that took this plunge, like when I say, yes, you have to have a personality, y'all have the personality. Like you have that. We've seen that. Like you guys have the mental makeup for that. So now it's just what is your tolerance for getting kicked in the face?
I like the cockroach
right?
thing.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I like that. They're all a bunch of cockroaches. That's what you need to be. You need to channel your inner cockroach. But it's true though, and you do have to
mark that for the podcast. Channel your inner cockroach.
That's gonna be one of our quotes. But I think this actually transitions nicely into another thing that we talked about earlier, because Mike and I were brainstorming, things we could talk about.
We also talk about y'all all the damn time,
all day.
FYI.
In a good way, usually though. But one of the things that I think we need to get into things that people can take away right now, that they can, as they leave this.
Oh, for sure.
That they can actually take away, because we went pretty deep. So now we're going to go back up to the stuff that's low hanging fruit. So one of the things that I struggled with is, we're talking about outlasting and things like that. I think when you get your first client and you're trying to hold on to dear life like a little cockroach onto what do cockroaches eat? Anything, everything, glue.
I don't know.
Is you're holding onto your piece of glue and you're eating it. The one thing that tends to happen is that you do too much for a client, and you do too much for
yes.
Yeah,
man, I did this today. I told you that like right before we got on.
Yeah. So, and it's doing too much and almost like undervaluing your work, because Mike and I talked about things that we had messed up before. And that's one that we've both done. I've done it big time. And I'm sure Mike has too.
Yeah.
Of like, you get a client, you want to keep them, or you want to over deliver. You want to do a lot of things for them. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a position of like, I'm doing way too much work for this person and I shouldn't be.
Yeah. And for me, it's not even about retention. It's usually about like, well, like today, I've got a client that tomorrow's our last day. And we were at a point today, and I was like, this is where we're at, man. I can make this change. I can make this change, or we can just call it a day. And I was like, I'm happy to do the work, and he's like, well, let's do this thing. And it's something that I'm going to have to do tomorrow morning. And it's a pretty time intensive thing. It's something I have to do. It's not something my team can do. And I'm like sitting here and I'm like, man, like I probably shouldn't have offered to do that, because he's on the way out of the door. Like it's not a good time investment, but I was like, I just want him to I want him to do well. And he's had he's not leaving because anything I did. He's leaving because he's just had a lot of shit, life stuff happen. And I was like, I feel bad, but I tend to, in business, when I've never been very good at being like, this is what you get, and draw on the line. Right. And so I tend to, I've always waited too long to increase my fees, so I've never charged. I still charge way less than a lot of my peers, that I think I'm as good or better than. And because I want to help people, and I want to be, I want them to be able to afford me. And then when I get into things, like sometimes I do too much, or it's not always too much. It's the other thing is not like doing too much for people. It's doing too custom for people.
Yeah.
I run into that a lot.
Well, I think everybody does in different ways. And I've done the same thing where I've done free work for clients that I shouldn't have. I've taken on clients that I shouldn't have. That's another one where it's like, I know I shouldn't take on this client. Like, I know it's going to be a bad idea.
I did that last month.
Yeah. And we tell you guys not to do that, but man, we all do it. And I think it's just, you look at it and you're like, okay, well, I can make money doing it like that. And we see this in the group all the time. People pick some really weird stuff to work with. And they're like, I really want to do this. And I want to make it work. And you look at it from the outside and you're like, oh, it's a horrible idea. But then, when you're in that moment and you're like, well, I want to be successful, especially when you're super hungry in the beginning, like you're going to try to take it. But even where we take, like, dude, I had that drill writer guy. For band, and I knew I shouldn't have taken him on. I was like, man, this is a bad idea. I know I can get him results. It's going to be super hard. And I did, but he was the worst person to work with ever. And I was like, and I knew he was going to be going into it, but I was like, yeah, but I'm going to make money on it. And it turned out to be a disaster. And I basically fired him eventually, but it was just, I still do that stuff. I know you still do,
Yeah. And one thing that I think, when we were talking about this and we kind of talked about it a little bit because Melissa made that great quote about the struggle nugs. And I was like, okay, so now we got to like think of like some, like dig back deep to some like early struggles and things. And I think one of the biggest struggles that I had early on was that I tried to do like a bespoke service for everybody. And so I ran a different funnel or a different type of ad for everybody. And I allowed them to come in and say, I want to do this, even if I didn't think it was a good idea or I didn't know how we were going to make it work. I was like, we'll figure it out. And I learned a lot from that, but I didn't really start to have real success until I started looking at it as, what is something I can do repeatable and do really well and get really good results. And that was what allowed me. It took me making the decision to have a team and getting to the point where I went, okay, I have to have this down to a system where I can teach somebody, you do A, B, C, D in order, and a result comes out, instead of like me being able to Frankenstein the shit, And so, but that's why a lot of times, like when we are talking to y'all about clients and we talk about like pick these easier stay in your lane clients, stick with local. The reason we're teaching local, like online, is really freaking hard, and there's a lot that goes into it. And, it's so that it's one of those things, like we're saying that because if you just want to have one or two clients, then go do the crazy things and have at it. But it's going to be a ton of work for those one or two clients. But if you are one of those people that you want to leave your job and you want to replace your income, then you need to be a little smarter about it and pick similar clients, stick with what's easy and what's repeatable and what's time efficient. That way you can stack them, because you have to stack clients to make the money, and you got to have time. And so it's one of those things like, would you rather have 5 clients all doing the same thing where you're just cranking it out, right? Or 5 clients doing all kinds of different things, and then you're juggling all these balls, and then people keep quitting because you're not getting the results. And people you don't see that. I didn't see that. So, I mean, that's just something, I think that was something I struggled with a lot, that I finally figured out was, how do I turn how do I turn my business, the service I provide, like the system we sell, how do I turn it into a product? How do I make it an assembly line? But how do I make my service I provide an assembly line while making my service personal, right?
Right.
So the service I delivered was cookie cutter, but the relationship I gave, the experience I gave was personal, right?
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then you can really grow and really do really well.
Well, I think that's something that I think every person, you think of the right way to say this, every person that is a good person is going to struggle with that. Because as a good person, you want to provide a lot of service. You want to like really go above and beyond. You want to do everything for this client. But what you find in business is that you can't do it. And I think on the other side of that, there are a lot of really shitty people in business. And Mike and I see this every day. And this is one of the reasons that this course is going to be very successful, because there are a lot of like smoke and mirrors, BS stuff, people going on out there that are selling things that do just total cookie cutter or just take the easiest way to do everything. And I think that if you're a good person, you struggle with those kind of things. So I think that's probably why both of us, I mean, I think we're pretty good people. I think we struggle with that. And it's the same
Bobby,
thing.
you're just a good shit human being.
Well, I mean, it's just one of those things, like even with my audience, to peel back the curtain a little bit, like I had a really hard time. We had people that were trying to do, when we first started selling this course, we had people that were trying to people lie to get refunds. People do some pretty shady stuff to try to get out of
Thank you, Allie.
the course. And that was something that I struggled with a lot, because I felt like every reader, I was like, no, every reader is a good person. And they're all the best people, because I put a ton of time into this and I want these people, like, I really want to help these people. And so that's something I've struggled with, with all of this. Like, I've been so shocked by the amount of people that try to trick you into getting a refund when they're like well outside of the refund policy and all of that stuff. And they'll do they'll say anything and they'll lie. And that was something I was like, oh my God. And so Mike had to kind of balance me out.
I struggle with this less.
Yeah, he struggles with it less, and it's good for me. That was one of the things I was like very, I needed that though, because I was very I'm very attached to my audience. Like, it's not bullshit. Like, I really do care about every person that reads the site, because I get where my money comes from. But man, not everybody is awesome.
And here's another thing that I struggle with, and to this day I struggle with, is putting two things: putting the job before your people, like your real life people. And then the flip side of that is putting your clients before your business.
Yeah.
You have to care about your clients, but you've got to care about your business. And you've got to care about your business, but you've got to care about your friends and your family and those sorts of things. And I think, I'll come back to the business family one, but when it comes to the client's business one, I still struggle with this to this day, where it's like Bobby and I are like, we need to work on these things. And then we're like, but Bobby's like, but I have to go do the staff writing thing. And I'm like, but I have to go do this client thing. Right. And we get so caught up sometimes in doing these things for these other people, which are important. They're paying us to do those things, but we're bending over for those people instead of taking care of us and our family. Right. And that's hard. It's really hard, but you've got to take care of yourself. Just like you got to take care of your health before you can take care of your family. You've got to take care of your business before you can take care of your clients. So if you don't take care of your business, you won't have any clients to take care of. And so you've got to do that. I love this. Kim says, yeah, I have to make myself go to other groups I'm part of instead of just hanging out in this one.
I think we have a special group. I think we do. I mean, and I'm not sure exactly what goes into that. I think it's just both of our personalities and the way we interact with people. And I truly do think, like, the Millennial Money Man audience, I think it's a really good audience. I think but yeah, it's just one of those things that everybody's going to always struggle with in entrepreneurship, like putting people in front of other people. You talked about that staff writing gig. I just realized I got to write something for that staff.
Well, I want to talk about this family versus business thing because it's something I struggle with so much, and where it's been like at times, not with my wife. She is we're both very lucky. We've got very supportive spouses. They're rock stars, but I've had,
They could be watching this.
they could be,
later,
but they're not. My wife does
They
not
don't
care.
watch this at all. They don't care.
But like I've had struggles with other family that they're like, what the hell, are you doing? And if you watch a lot of these lifestyle entrepreneurs and stuff, you see a lot of this stuff like, you see a lot of stuff that's like, oh, you work a couple hours a day and you have this freedom and you do all this. And they talk about the lifestyle that they may have at that time. And they tell people like, chill, right? Like take it easy. Don't overdo it. All of these kinds of things. And I see that. And I want to do that too, because it's like, I catch myself sometimes giving people advice and go, I didn't do that. And so I want to be really like upfront about this stuff. Like I didn't get here by taking it easy, like, and not working hard and not working ridiculous hours and not making sacrifices. Like I did a lot. Like I worked an obscene amount, and I was giving Bobby the example. This was in law school, but it's a good illustration of like how I am at the start of my business too. I did not do Thanksgiving with my family for 3 years in law school because I was studying for finals. And so the one Thanksgiving, I was so focused on studying that I forgot to buy food. And on Thanksgiving Day, the only thing that was open was Whataburger. So I had Whataburger for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And
I love this story, by the way.
Yeah, it's awesome. But like that has been like, that's kind of how I was, that's how I've been in business, where like I work. I have a hard time not working at times, and like I like what I'm doing, but like I knew what I wanted to get. And I remember, not that long ago, like having a conversation with my father-in-law, and I was like, and he was like, dude, like I miss you. Like I feel like I never see you. We were playing pool in my room, my front room. It's like, I feel like we never do. So we used to play pool for hours. And he's like, I never see you. Like you're working every time we're around, like always doing all this stuff. And I'm like, I know, just, I promise it's going to stop eventually. That's what I have to do right now. And he's like, dude, you're going to miss out on all this stuff with your kids and everything. I'm like, I'm with my kids every damn day. Like, I'm like every morning, like I'm with them all the time. I promise you, I'm not missing out on any of that. But I was like, you don't see this, but like, I'm doing this right now because we're going to be able to do all kinds of stuff for the rest of our life. And just wait and see, and it'll be okay. And he didn't get it. And then, like, and I haven't talked about this a whole lot, but I probably should, like in your community and stuff, but like I paid off my student loans about a month ago.
Yeah,
and I'm talking about
that more.
Yeah. And Scott knows. And I mean, and when I mean I paid off my student loans, I mean I paid off like a number and like 5 zeros, like a big number of student loans. And it's because of all of this work. Right. And when I told, the same thing, when I told my family that, they were like, okay, we get it. Like it just, all of a sudden it made sense, And so it's one of those things, like I said earlier, you have to know when to pull back, right? You have to know when you're on burnout. You have to know when the people in your life, your spouse, your kids, your friends, whatever, need you to be around. And then you need to pull back and you need to be present, or you need to pull back and you need to rest. You need to be able to identify that. But like, don't think that you can 4-hour work week it and build the whole thing. The 4-hour work week thing comes after you build it. So at least that's how I view it.
I see on Instagram. No, I agree, man. I went through the same thing where I'm just now, man. I took my dad and my brother-in-law out on a fishing charter the other day. I'm just now at the point where I can like step away from things, because for a long time my family was like, oh, we just don't see Bobby anymore. Like, oh, Bobby's too busy. Like, they stopped even inviting me to some stuff.
And that sucks, man.
But they stopped inviting me to stuff because they knew I was going to say no. And I, for about, almost 3 years, I've been in business 3 years now. Like, that's what I've been. And a couple months ago, I talked to Coral about it, and I was like, I became that person that's never there. And it happened so slowly. You know, it's not something that you notice, especially like this is full-time entrepreneurship, but it's like, you know, it's like you say no to one thing one time, and then you say, no, I can't go to that. And then all of a sudden it's just like you become the person that's too busy to do anything. And so I'm just now at the point where I'm trying to rebalance everything to where it's like I can actually go do things with my family. We're having them over this weekend. And it's hard though, man. That's the hard when you're driven and when you want to be successful quickly and be fun.
Like we had fun. We had family in over a while back, and you know, it's always been kind of like, oh, we're going to the store. I'm like, I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna get work done, and then I'll hang out with y'all when you get back, or you know, we're going to the park or whatever. And I went to go take a shower, and I get out of the shower, and the house is empty. I'm like, where the hell did everybody go? My kids are gone. My wife's gone. My family's gone. Like, where'd everybody go? And like, they had like gone off to the park or something. They came back and I was like, what the hell? Like, why did y'all like leave? Why didn't like, and they're like, well, we figured you were going to like work or whatever. So we just like went. I was like, I want to go to the park too. Like, at least invite me, give me the option to say yes or no, because, but in the past I would have just been like, okay, cool. I'm going to do that because that's what it was. But now I'm like at a point where I'm like, I want to go do these things now. Like I've kind of like felt like I'd made it. I'd earned the right to do those things now.
Well, I think that's huge. I mean, and I think that's one of those things that a lot of people that are taking this course that want to do this just as a side hustle, they're not going to maybe experience that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, because that's not the optimal lifestyle. But
well, it's, you have to know what your goal is.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like we didn't create, here's the deal. We did not create this course for all of y'all to do what we did. We didn't create this course for you to go build this monster thing and have a big team. If you want to do that, you can. It's all there, right? There's more, but like, you know, we'll help you with that when you get there. Like you can do that, but we created it to like go get a client or two and change your life because you pay off your debt or you have fun money to go on a vacation to Europe or whatever. Like that was what we created it for. And you can do that and still have life balance, right? But, you know, but if you want more, if you want like,
if you want to
the real deal,
this will help you.
Yeah,
we can do it.
If you want to come to the dark side,
you want to come to the dark side, disappear from your family and friends for a while.
So Allison has
better on the other side.
Allison has a great question, and she says, "I have a lot of fear around whether I can actually do it." So, do you ever feel that way?
Hell yeah, yeah, imposter syndrome. Yeah, I think, man, there are so many. Until very recently, I was in the same place. I mean, like, and from a lot of perspectives, because I own a marketing business and I own, you know, obviously the blog. You know, I wondered for a long time if I was doing the right thing. I wondered if I had what it took to like be an entrepreneur and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, you get to the point eventually where you realize like, yeah, I do. But I think everybody struggles with that. Even the most successful, I know bloggers that make $1 million a year and feel like they still suck. And that's the reality of just entrepreneurship, because here's the problem. There's always somebody that's better. There's always somebody that's further along. There's always somebody that has achieved more. And the unfortunate reality with that is that you're comparing yourself to somebody's middle, you know, like where they're at like several years down the road, and instead of where you are right now. And so if you stop doing that and you just look at your own progress and go, okay, I started here, now I'm here. And if you keep it about yourself and stop worrying about other people, then you don't worry about if you can actually do it as much, especially when you become successful. But I think every entrepreneur, unless Mike does it, I don't know. Mike might have been like, he came out and was like, I can do this, but I don't think so.
I'm like, if you tell me I can't do it, I'm like, oh, well, watch me, you know? But no, I mean, you know this, like, you know,
self-doubt.
Dude, I mean, you forget already because it feels like 3 weeks ago, but a week ago, last Thursday, I was like, I cannot do this. Like, I can't function. Like, I'm screwing everything up. Like, I mean, I was like sending you voice messages and I was like ready to jump off the cliff.
It was sad.
Like, it was, yeah. yeah, I was having a really, really hard time. Like, and that happens. And it wasn't like I was comparing myself to anybody. Cause like, I don't struggle with that as much. Like if I'm comparing myself to somebody, it's usually in a positive thing. Or if I see that there's somewhere I'm not yet, I'm like I said, that's the motivate that for me, that's motivational. Right.
Right.
So I don't have that. But what I have is that in I'm so hard on myself about things that I get in my head, or I just, something goes wrong and I let it build up. Right. And I had reached that point where I had been doing so much and working so hard and not getting the sleep and whatever. And I actually don't even remember what was so bad last week that I was in that place. I just remember being like on the brink of a meltdown. And I remember even by like that day, like I remember calling Katie. Oh, I remember part of it was like Cooper was a madman too. So I was like having like struggling with business and being a dad at the same time. And I remember like calling her at one point and I was like, I don't know that I can. I actually said that to her, I don't know that I can do this. And what I was referring to was, I don't know that I can run a business and be a dad and do all of this at once. Like, I think it's just too much. And, and then, went to sleep, got over it. And then Friday, I was like a little bit better, but I was just like not productive, right? Like I was in a better mental place, but I just wasn't getting anything done. And so over the weekend, I was just like, I'm just not going to do anything. I'm just going to chill. I'm going to read a book. And by Sunday, Bobby's really good at unplugging and I'm not. So by Sunday, I'm like, hey man, I got an idea. Hey man, I got an idea. Let's do this. Let's do this. And I'm like sending him like 1,000 messages and he's ignoring me. And, so you just, so yeah, I go through it and we all go through it. We've all been there. You never feel, here's the deal. You'll never feel like you can do it or like you've made it because you're always moving the goalpost.
Yeah. You know, it's incredible to me. Like we've been talking for an hour and 40 minutes. All this is mental. Like we've just been talking about like the mental aspect of everything. And you mentioned it earlier, like entrepreneurship is mental. It is, man. Like you're playing games against yourself. You have to motivate yourself. And that's the one difference I think it's the biggest difference between being an employee and then having your own side hustle or being an entrepreneur. Like we talk to you guys in the group a lot, and that's kind of a luxury, but like the reality is like when you go to your job, somebody's telling you what to do. They're telling you have to meet these things. You have to do this. When you're an entrepreneur and you're doing your own business, like, man, it's hard because there's no, I've got to do this, and this to grow. Like you might have tasks, but it's all.
That's a really good point too, that Allison made. Like you have to be smart to run a business, but you also deal with that inner struggle of like fighting with your own brain.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and it's not even, I think smart, I think driven's part of it too, because there are plenty of people that just don't like, a lot of people are totally happy to just like, they do their 9 to 5. Maybe they're not happy, whatever. They get home, they turn sports on, they forget about it for a little bit. They drink a couple beers and they go to bed and they wake up and rinse and repeat. And everybody that's in this course they're not wired that way. Because you wouldn't take this course if you wouldn't take a course to do a side hustle and make more money if you were wired to like just go ho hum day to day like most people do. And so that it's a lot
you're
of people
not satisfied. That's why you do this.
It's a blessing and a curse. I mean, if you have that inner struggle, it's a great thing because you can use it and you can leverage it to make more money and create the life you want. But it's hard because you have that you're never satisfied feeling. And a lot of people have the satisfied feeling and then they complain about life, but it's a whole different argument.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or anything? I know we're just
I think we should open up to questions. We have been doing this for an hour and 43 minutes, but I'm happy to do questions. I got a little more time for questions. So
I'm curious to hear Scott's perspective a little bit, being a business owner. Just throwing that out there.
You guys have said so much. My perspective on what?
I don't know anything, man. Like you're a business owner. Drop some nugs.
Even though, well,
it's a different kind of business, but I mean, do you deal with this kind of stuff as well? Like the mental stuff or the work-life balance or any of that?
One of the things that you said that really resonates with me is, and I've heard it before phrased a different way, is you said it's mental and it's what we think we can do. The other way I've heard it phrased is like the greatest limits that exist on us are those that we place on ourselves. And I think that's right, because you can have other people believe in you more, but until you believe it and until you're ready to take the risk, it's not going to work. And that's like, I think what's a lot of the part of this group that's great, the community building that I see, like people are like putting out their ad for critique. They're saying, you know, how is this? Or they're saying, I'm going to go approach this business owner. What should I do? And then, you know, some of the people, you know, it's like you do it and it works. And then you see someone else do it and you're like, okay, I can do it. But you still have to take that step. And so it's in your head. Like, even if you have 400 people in this group saying, you've got it, this is a great business now, you know, you still have to put yourself out there and take that risk. And that's not easy. That's like in business or in personal, right? That risk of, will it fail? But that's also the amazing part when it succeeds, right? That it wasn't guaranteed. So, yeah.
True Southern accent. He does have a Southern accent. I enjoy it though.
Question for you. So you obviously have a very busy part of the year, right? So you have a time of the year where you got to be on, right? And I'm sure that you run into times where you have to be on because you have no other choice, because if you're not on, then your customers, your clients are in trouble with the government. So I'm sure during that time you burn out or you get worn out or you don't want to show up. Like, how do you deal with that? Because that's hard. I think that's one of the hardest things, is just deciding to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. I deal with it better on some days than others. You know, you have team members that help because they're coming in and they're like, what do I do next? And so I think not being a lone ranger helps, because I was a lone ranger, and those are particularly tough situations because you're there and maybe it's the weekend and maybe other people are doing other stuff, but you're like, I got to get all these tax returns done. And you're like, you know, just, you can start to despair. But I think like knowing that will happen, you put in a mental check, like, you know, I'm not going to evaluate my entire life and all these decisions that have led to this particular stressful point. I know it's going to be bad, you know, whether it's studying for the bar exam or you've got to get your blog up, whatever it is, like, you know, it's going to be bad. And so in the same way, like if you're out there trying to sell these ads and you realize, oh my gosh, I've got 5 customers, how am I going to do all this? Like, you're like, okay, this weekend's going to suck. And this isn't going to be my, you know, 2-hour work week. So I think like setting the expectation and then not putting as much pressure on yourself. But yeah, I mean, I do not do it perfectly. There's a luxury of knowing like I'm going to be working all the time, but that's actually also can be a cop out. It can be like, oh, I have to work. And then you can like not be as efficient and not be as smart and not use team members. So I'm figuring that out. I'm not doing it perfectly, but I'm trying to. And also right after the stressor, make notes of what happened, because you'll forget it. At least I will rose-colored glass it and be like, oh, I made it through. It wasn't that bad. And then you'll be right back in the same spot when that next stress comes. So I'm trying to actually write down now like things that I learned so that next year is not as bad. So
document what triggered this thing. That way, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. And document what worked and then what didn't. And so, yeah. And I think also one of the luxuries of everyone in a side hustle group, like hopefully your main hustle is paying, you know, your bills or at least close, so that this is a side hustle. Now this may become something you rely on, but if this is a side hustle, if it's too much pain or too much trouble, see ya, you know? So choosing who you want to do business with, like Bobby was talking about, he was working with somebody and I was like, oh, it's miserable. Like that's also, I think, something that you can work through. Like after you've done this a few times, you're like, it's not me, it's them.
That's so true.
This group is great for that, right? Because you can bounce ideas and say, you know, is this client unreasonable? He wanted this number of leads, or she thought I was supposed to get this results. So yeah.
I appreciate the insight, man. It's different, but I mean, but it's good to hear that. Like, I mean, here's another person that's very successful. It's like I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, we're all trying to figure it out. You're just at different levels of figuring it out.
Yeah, and not comparing your middle or your finish, or sorry, someone else's middle or their finish with your beginning. I was talking to a guy who works as a side hustle at a CPA firm in California. He works for a guy who does 1,000 returns, which is a tremendous number, especially when you have one guy in charge. And he was kind of coming in, working a few hours, getting paid. It sounded so efficient to me. I was like, oh man, that got it figured out. Well, that guy who's done 1,000 returns, guess what? He has someone who their whole job is just copying and moving papers around in files. He's got another person who's doing data entry, another. And so it wasn't reasonable for me to compare myself to that situation, but I did, for a few days and kind of beat myself and be like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Like, what's wrong? Why is my operation not so efficient? But it's that comparison trap. So I think that's important to keep in mind.
Oh yeah. I mean, like it's not, for example, it is not reasonable for y'all to compare some of what you do to what I'm doing, because I have a team of people that are doing a lot of the work for me. Right. And so it's, that's something to keep in mind. And I'm always try to be really careful to like try and explain things. I want to give the perspective, like today when I was talking about the triple Ds, right? I wanted to give the perspective of like, do, delegate, and delete, right? But then saying like, if you don't have someone to delegate to, Allie is just like head in the gutter over here, losing her mind. Brian too. This is funny. Called you out. Yeah. But like, I was trying to, and then Zach says boobies, of course. So
D's in the group. What did you think was going to happen? You seen our group?
Well, I know. I mean, like I said, we want to have fun, right? So yeah. So I mean, but trying to go like, hey, it's different for everybody, and so do what?
No, sorry. I was just we want to have fun, and then I was going back. I thought back to the first thing we ever did with the Botox and the.
Oh God.
What'd you say? Botox, fake titties.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what you said. Sorry. Anyways, it was just a theme. I put it all together. So anyways, keep going.
Yeah. Oh, whatever. Does anybody have any questions? Zach, no problem, man. Man, I'm super transparent. Like I don't hide anything. It is what it is.
Botox, fake titties. Yeah.
Yep. That was the one.
That was the one.
Yeah.
We're going to try to work that into our podcast intro.
No, we're not. No, that one's not going in the.
Yes, we are. There goes that iTunes rating. It goes right to.
See, that's what I'm thinking about. Like, I'm sitting here. He's like, yeah. No, I was just thinking about like, I'm thinking about how to market it. I'm like, that's a bad idea.
We'll have an
Let's keep it for inside the podcast. The Nuggs and the references. Cool. Yeah. Well, anybody have any questions, anything they want to chime in with before we wrap up a 2-hour long training?
I don't know. This is fun. This is more like a conversation.
It is fun. That's why we always go long, because it's fun.
I don't think we've ever stuck to 1 hour.
Last week with Jessica on the dot. Well, that was because I had an appointment.
We weren't drinking.
That's true. It was in the morning. Maybe that's the key.
Yeah. When do you know when to celebrate? God, I used to struggle with that. I didn't celebrate. Like when I met Mike, he had this whole wine celebration, and like, this is gonna sound bad. I have become less frugal since I met Mike, but in a good way, because I was to the point where I wouldn't spend money on anything. And I remember when we launched the course and we made a lot of money, and we were going to buy this really expensive bottle of wine that I have sitting on my desk right here. I stood in Kroger, freaking staring at the shelf. It was a $60 bottle of wine, and I was like, yeah, Papillon. And I was staring at it, and I was like, God, I've never bought any kind of wine.
I was buying the wine, and you were going to buy. You were asking for like a good, like cheaper bottle of wine. And so I was like, here's a $20 bottle. Here's a $30 bottle. Here's a $40 bottle. And then he got home and he's like, I bought the one you bought. I was like, sweet.
Yeah, but I was standing there in the Kroger just like, oh my God, I can't, like, I just don't. And from the time I had walked from the car into the Kroger and back, I'd made a lot of money, but I still had a real problem buying that wine. But now it's a lot different because I reward myself anytime. Like, I'm looking forward to rewarding not always with wine, that would be bad, but like we work hard, man. And so it's like anytime that something really good happens, I want to take my wife out to dinner. I want to do something nice, because if you don't celebrate for yourself, nobody's going to do it for you. And that's just the reality of.
And I will tell you, I think I didn't used to do that, right? And now I've got a couple things. So today I've been drinking my Garrison Brothers, but I have an unopened bottle here that was given to me from a client, and it was one of the first. It was the first ever paid consultation, or it was the first consultation I ever did. I wasn't charging him, but he gave me bourbon. And then, I've got these bottles. I've got one that I had done. So I had one bottle that I had done, and then I was doing one for our first launch. And then Bobby was like, this is badass. And now it's become a thing. But I think what I've learned from it is you look for opportunities to celebrate. Okay. That don't just set yourself a goal. Say, when I achieve this, I'm going to do this. Yeah. Okay. And so, like Bobby and I have picked out a bottle of wine for a specific milestone in this business that is still quite a ways off, but we know exactly what it is and we talk about it. And we're not only going to get that bottle of wine, but we're going to get the bottle of wine. We're going to hang out together and drink it together, which, we've seen each other once in 12 years. So, and that was like recently for like 5 minutes. So, so it's a big deal. And so looking for that thing, like if I do this, like for get a case, like for y'all, like if that's something, Kim says a $60 an expensive bottle. It's one of the more expensive bottles I've ever bought. So
the most I've ever bought. Like, I don't know what everybody else is buying, but
yeah. But if that's something like for you, maybe it's like, I'm going to get something for my first, I'm going to get something to celebrate like my first client. Do that, right? Like plan that out. I've got, I have in here, I have $1. This is not the first dollar I ever earned, but it's the first dollar I earned after my wife spent the first dollar I ever earned.
That story. Yeah.
Dude, I forgot about this. I should tell this. So when I started my first business and I got the first time somebody paid me, I went and I got it all in cash in ones. And I took the top dollar off the stack and I kept it in my desk, and I was going to frame it or something. And I don't know what my wife wanted a drink or something, and she was looking for money and she went in my desk and it was $1. This $1, and she took the dollar bill and she spent it. I was so pissed off.
That's awesome, man. Wow.
So find ways, find a way, to celebrate. And we've done that, going and buying a nice dinner, I told Katie when we went out recently it was our 10 years together. I was like, I want to go out and have a nice dinner, but not go to where there's the discount deal, right? I don't want to go buy the discount, discount. I don't, what it is, the couples you go and you get the appetizer and the tiny little steaks. I don't want to do that. I want to buy at full cost, right? I want to go to the restaurant and buy a bottle of wine and get the full cost steak. Can we do that? And we didn't. But, I was I want to do that. And then we still didn't end up doing that. But, I bought the wine. I didn't get the full price steak, but whatever.
But I think it's important. And that's one of those things I've learned from Mike is it is important to reward yourself. And I went through a long period where I didn't, and I wish I had. The first year or two of my business,
I didn't either.
I had done that.
I started doing that right before we started working together.
Oh, I'm glad. Okay, well, that's good.
So I haven't been doing it much longer.
I thought you were just partying the whole time.
No, I wish, man. Should have. I should have. But it's I think you have to I think what a lot of people do is they dwell on the things that they've messed up on. I screwed this up, and they get in a bad mood. And they look forward at how much further they have to go, and they get depressed, and they end up in a hole. And what you should be doing is you should look back and say, look how far I've come. And you should look forward to, this is how I'm going to celebrate when I reach this destination. Yeah. And if you can do that, instead of like looking at where people are at, if you can instead say, look how far I've come. And if instead of looking back and being frustrated with what you screwed up on in the past, you can look forward to what you're going to do right in the future. It has a huge, huge impact. And while we're talking about all this deep shit, everybody's talking alcohol here in the sidebar.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I was looking, they're all talking about where to buy it.
Everybody's talking about discount stuff. So, we're officially done when everybody's just like talking.
Everybody's like, they're done. Yeah. Let's not listen to them anymore. Let's talk about where to buy our alcohol. Scott started that.
Well, what we figured out, here's a little wine tip. We just had like a big brand new Wines and More, and Katie and I kept buying wine there, and like we were having great luck buying wine at like grocery stores and stuff. But when we started buying wine from Total Wines and More, we just kept striking out. Like it was really bad. But then Bobby noticed that once we found some really good wines at stores that were pretty expensive, that if you could find those wines at Total Wines and More, they were cheaper. So the lesson here is test the eye level and higher shelves in the grocery store, but then go buy it at Total Wines and More. Yeah.
$3 cheaper on average.
Okay. Allie, can you expand on that? What do you mean?
What do you mean?
You can like talk, or you can type for 5 minutes.
Okay.
That's
cool. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No.
Okay. No.
No.
Yes?
No.
I can hear you.
Okay. I have a kid. So your challenge this week was to like bust your ass, right? It's like your 1, 2, and 3, your hardest things. So how has that changed for you guys?
Have I done well with the challenge? Is that what you're asking?
Well, y'all have been talking about laptop empires for a while and getting it going and whatever. And how has that, like, what are y'all's success stories over this week? There have been a bunch of like new clients and expanding of this or that, or at the LinkedIn things. I've seen so many more people jump into live trainings from in the past even.
Yeah.
But
a lot of y'all are crushing it a lot better than I am this week.
So yeah, I hear about how we're crushing it. But what about you guys?
I'll be honest. I started out this week. Mike and I talked on maybe Saturday or Sunday, and we had all the stuff we were going to do. And I've gotten a lot done, but I didn't crush it the way I thought I was going to. Like I just had thing after thing after thing, and it happens to all of us. Like I had thing after thing come up. And
we had a lot of life get in the way this week.
We had a lot of life. And it was one of those things like we were so pumped that it was like, we got to do this challenge. And that's not to say we haven't gotten stuff done. I mean, we do a lot, but I didn't get as much as I thought I was going to get done. I thought we were going to have everything ready for the Laptop Empire launch done by tomorrow.
I'm going to be honest. When we first chose the original date, I didn't think we were going to hit it, but I was like, we built the course in 5 weeks. We can do this.
I never think we're going to do anything ever when we're supposed to do it.
Because
the problem is we have too many things going on. It's
I this week, I got a lot done, but I kind of like this has been a week that I've really changed a lot of my patterns, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I've really made an effort. I don't sleep well. Like I could stay up all night, but I really regret it in the morning. And so I've really taken this week to go to bed a lot earlier and to get on an earlier schedule. And a lot of that is because I know that's what I'm going to have to do to survive Cooper not being in school. like I'm going to have to like work early. So I've been getting up a lot earlier, and I'm not a morning person like at all. And then another thing that I've done that's been very different is I've been making, with different varying success, a huge effort to not open my phone or messenger or email, until hours into the day. And so what I've really tried to do is, when I look at my tasks for the day, I'm planning them out the night before, and to wake up and just do them before I do anything else. And that's really hard for me. Like my instinct is to, look at emails from clients and to open Messenger and like see if Bobby sent me gifts, like, or to look in the Facebook group and like see what y'all have been posting about overnight, like that. And I can get sucked into that. But if I get sucked into that, then I end up dealing with other people's stuff instead of my stuff. I end up in conversations with Bobby, or I end up doing things that clients want me to do, and I just delay all of my stuff. So I think the biggest thing for me, it's not that I can't tell you that I've necessarily been way more productive this week. I have been in a lot of cases, but I've been more focused on like doing the things that matter and the things that I needed to get done. And I say I haven't been more productive this week, but as I'm like looking down at my little sheet here, I'm moving through things, and I'm moving through things faster, right? Like a lot of times I will avoid something and then take a really long time to get it done. And I've kind of taken the approach where I'm like, I'm just going to rush through this, and I get it done. I'm getting it done really fast. So like, as an example, like this is a sheet of a segment of my clients, like a certain type of client. And I have their name and then like a space where I can write things. And I would normally sit for hours and write, I got to do this for each one. And my wife and I wanted to watch an episode of Billions in bed yesterday because we didn't have a 3-year-old to put to bed. And so we were getting that done and getting it set up. And so I was like, I'm going to do this during the preview. And so in like a 2-minute period, I literally wrote out like a dozen things, and I was like, boom, 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 boom. And I knocked it out, and it was really hasty, but that would have taken me an hour if I would have sat down to do it, because I would have just taken the time, but I didn't need it. Right. I just needed to get it on paper. So, I mean, that's how it's been for me.
Oh, for me, it was, I actually got a lot of stuff done this week, but it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought we were going to get, multiple podcast episodes done. I thought we were going to get a lot of blog stuff done. I thought I was going to get a ton of stuff done from Millennial Money Man client work. And I got, I don't know, probably half of what there's still tomorrow, but Coral's taking off work tomorrow. So it's like, I thought that I was going to get a ton done, and I got a lot of things done, but it wasn't as much as I thought. But that's like, I feel like that always happens. Like that's every day in entrepreneur land. And personal stuff too. I mean, I got hit with this car thing I sold my wife's car, and it turned out to be a disaster. And just, we had an issue today with some stuff we were doing that didn't work. And then Coral wanted to go furniture shopping, and then,
yeah. And like the podcast like thing, that's a good example. Like we just didn't, we were like, we're going to knock this out. We're going to do we're going to sit down on this night and do 4 episodes. And then like the first night we were going to do that, something happened. And then you had the car thing, and we were just talking about it, and it was like, okay, you're not in the right mood for this.
I was pissed off.
Yeah. and then like today would have been a good day, but we're doing this, so it's like,
but I think that's one of the struggles with entrepreneurship. Like you always want to try to get everything done all the time. And it really just turns into like, if you can get a lot of your stuff done, if you can get like 50% or 60 or 70% of what you wanted to get done, then that's probably a successful week. And I think that's just.
But like I said, with this week, with like identifying the things and separating them, if you tell yourself, I'm going to do these 3 things today, no matter what, and that's all you do, like you're going to get a hell of a lot more done than if you try and do a big list. And I didn't get that for the longest time. I would try and just like, I have this whole list and I was like, I'm just going to work so much and I'm going to do as much as I can every day. And that's when you burn out and that's when you miss out on things and that's when you skip everything. But when you go, I'm going to do these 3 things and the faster I get them done, the more time I get off at the end of the day. That's something that I've discovered lately. When I identify those things, I go, I'm going to do these things and these things only today. And then I'm going to unplug when I'm done. Like I don't have the guilt. I don't know if any of you have experienced this yet, but I have work guilt. Like when I'm not working and I'm doing something other than work, I'm like, I have a lot of shit to do. And then when I'm working, I'm like, I should be with my family. And by saying these are the things I'm going to get done for the day, and then when I'm done with them, I just stop worrying, that guilt has gone away. And so that's been huge. And now I'm like reading all this stuff. I hate when like I'm talking and everybody's like smirking about something and I'm like, they're having a conversation without me.
Yeah. But no, I think, you know, somebody, Allie made a good point. She said, what did she say? We created a week of fire. I mean, man, we had so many people this week that got clients.
We've had at least 2 people that I know of, 2 people that were like, after Tuesday, were like, I did the thing that I was avoiding doing and I got a client. And then other people that were like, I did the thing I was avoiding doing and I have sales calls set up. And that's really freaking cool. We're just going to have to do this more often.
Sorry, I'm just going to chime in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just people being proud of themselves, like speaking up and saying, I did it, was awesome to hear. Like, hey, you made me set this goal for myself and I accomplished it. Those are good things. And y'all did that. I mean,
and you talked about like what we accomplished this week, and that wasn't even on my radar. Like not at all.
But that's like the biggest thing for everybody else.
And that's a good point. And this is an example of like why you have to really think about what you've accomplished and stuff in a business. Because from my perspective, like the stuff that's going on in the group and the time we spend in there, that's just what we have to do. That's a daily thing. That's like brushing your teeth to me, you know? So it's not something that I like would have thought of as like, this is a big deal. It is a big deal, but it's not like, you know, I would not have thought of that if you hadn't said that. So that is very cool. Yay, Allie.
All right, Mike. I'm going to be the responsible one.
Yeah.
We got to go.
Let's go. Yeah. Katie's asking me to print her a resume.
I'm excited about it.
So I got to do that
tomorrow. I'm excited. But yeah. All right. Well, anybody have any last questions? Thanks for hanging out with us. We talked for 2 hours and 11 minutes. I love doing this stuff. So
I know we're always like, we're going to keep it short this time. And then we just like get on here and it's fun.
We've never done it.
Do it again.
Does anybody really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and kill the recording.